Hello, and welcome back to the second episode of my podcast. My name is Crathan Garrikus. I'm the radio voice of your Charlotte Flyers, and this is Flight Tracker. Today we're going to start with a look at where we are on June 3rd, 2058. We are now a couple of months into the season. We have a pretty good idea what's going on with the Flyers and with the BBA in general. First, let's take a look at the Johnson League standings in the Atlantic Division. Montreal's in first place at 37-21. New Orleans is in second at 35-23, 2 games back, and the Flyers are sitting 4 games back at 33-25. It's a tight race, though. The Charm City Jimmies are sitting only 5 games back, and Jacksonville is sitting only 6 games back. So that is 5 teams within 6 games of each other. Montreal in first place for the entire Johnson League, and then New Orleans leading the wild card, Charlotte second in the wild card, and then a whole slew of teams sitting there at 32-26. As Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Calgary are all tied for the Frontier Division lead at 32-26, with Charm City just behind Charlotte in that wild card race. So things are going to get pretty fun here for the next few months as we find out who's really in this thing. But right now, there's a lot to be looking forward to in the months of June, July, August, and September. So let's go ahead and take a look at how Charlotte has maintained this position, sitting near the top of the Atlantic Division and in the second wildcard spot overall so far. A lot of it has been their offense. So far, first in the league in batting average, first in the league in on-base percentage, second in the league in runs scored, second in the league in hits, first in walks, and second in stolen bases. So near or at the top of the entire Johnson League in all of those categories. Slugging percentage is a little lower, but still sitting 6th at .453. On base plus slugging, .808, 4th in the Johnson. 6th in the league in extra base hits, 10th in home runs. So they have a lot of doubles and triples. Home runs a little lower on the list. Let's take a look at the pitching now. The earned run average for the team is at 4.39, 7th in the Johnson. The starter's ERA is actually 4.53, which comes in at 6th in the JL. Bullpen ERA, 10th in the JL at 4.16, but both of those have actually improved of late. There have been a lot of changes in the bullpen and kind of shifting in and out of the starting rotation, and those things seem to be having a positive impact overall. They've given up quite a few runs. They're 12th in the league there, 13th in hits allowed, 10th in opponent batting average, 12th in BABIP. That's been a struggle for them. A little unlucky there. But the category that they have done really well in, they've given up the 3rd fewest home runs in the Johnson League so far this year. So if they can continue that, that's going to bode well for them. Let's take a look at some individual performances so far. First, let's look at a couple of guys who they were counting on to be good, who have been. One of those is Dallas Dixon. Dixon is slashing .359, .407, .479. He's got a 1.8 WAR, 19 stolen bases so far on the year, and he's actually only been caught 1 time. He has a WRC plus of 141. He's got 15 doubles, 3 triples, and he's scored 43 runs already on the season. Dixon has done great offensively. Defensively, he got off to a little bit of a shaky start, but he has gotten a little better as of late. They're hoping that that can continue because they're going to need to have that positive defensive play in order for their pitchers to be really successful. Another guy that they were counting on, Robert Menzies, they needed him healthy and they needed him to produce, and he has done both so far. He has stayed off of the DL. He did have a day-to-day injury, and they were kind of managing his playing time a bit there, but he has played 49 games and is slashing .287, .375, .421. He's got 9 stolen bases, 13 extra base hits, 26 runs batted in on the season so far with a 1.3 WAR. His defense is not quite up to par with what he normally has been, but his efficiency is still at 1025, so he's still producing pretty well in the field. The guy they're really looking at to be big this year is Tadataka Yoshikawa. He is making $20 million this season, and he has been solid. He's already played more games than he played last year at 55 games played in 2058 compared to the 41 that he played last year. He is slashing 240, 343, 449. They would hope for a little more than that, but his defense has been decent out in left field. He's got 13 doubles, 2 triples, and 8 home runs with 45 runs batted in. That's a big number at this point in the season, so he is producing in that regard. Defensively, he did struggle a lot at first base. We talked during the preseason that we thought that's where he was going to end up. He's actually been better in left field. His efficiency there is .1023. A little bit of a negative zone rating, but overall, he is making a bigger impact out there defensively than he was at first base, where it was quite a negative impact. A couple of guys that they were hoping were going to be big producers who are maybe underperforming a bit. Banger Dan has played good defense at third, so that's been very helpful. But offensively, 265, 320, 385, only 3 home runs so far on the year. He had a big year last year, and this year the power numbers are not really there, not getting on base as much as they would like. He has driven in 33 runs. He has 0.8 WAR on the season, and his May was considerably better than his April. In April, he hit 250, no home runs. In May, 290 with 3 home runs. So he's moving in the right direction. They're hoping that he can continue that in June and beyond. Victor Frazier is playing outstanding defense in center field, but he's not providing the pop that he did last year. He is slashing 287, 343, 401 with only 1 home run so far on the year. Last year he hit 18 on the season, so he is well off of that pace right now. So we'll see whether that changes or if he just becomes more of a get-on-base guy with the 343, try to get him in through other means. So far he has scored 22 runs on the year, driven in 19, but the defense that he's playing is outstanding and well worth having him on the field with the solid but unspectacular production he's getting at the plate. A guy who is a bit of a surprise so far this year in a positive way is Fawaz Amin. Amin has struggled the last 10 days or so, but overall he's been pretty remarkable. He's slashing 293, 359, 515. He has 14 doubles, 7 home runs, 37 RBI as primarily the designated hitter against right-handed pitching. Is that Amin was a guy that we heard in spring training was on the bubble for a roster spot. And he's played in 51 games and produced at a high level. So it's been a very good thing for the team that he was able to stick around. A guy who has been performing better than expected, perhaps, is Fuad Demirel. Demirel is 284, 373, 503. He's got 12 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs, and 20 RBI. He's stolen 7 bases. He's at 1.6 WAR. That OPS of 876 is right now better than anything he's had in his career. The highest he's ever had was 790 that he had last season. So if he can maintain that 876 clip, that's going to be huge for this ball club as he, again, faces generally only right-handed pitching. So a couple of guys that are making an impact who were kind of unknowns coming into the year. Farid bin Mubarak, the catcher who they signed late in spring training, is hitting 309, 347, 383. So not much in the way of extra base hits, but he is getting on base. He's got a 0.5 WAR. He has been much more offensively complementary to the lineup than what Hollis O'Hara was last year. He also is playing pretty solid defense, maybe not quite to the level of O'Hara, and maybe some of the pitching struggles early had to do with getting used to the pitching staff getting used to bin Mubarak versus the exceptionally defensively talented Hollis O'Hara. So let's just quickly run down a couple of other guys. Andy Bishop keeps forcing his way onto the field. Last year, he was forced into a starting role and ended up playing a lot of shortstop because of the injury to Menzies, played some second base, and had a solid rookie year. Last season, 287, 324, 427. He had 22 doubles, 3 triples, 10 home runs, 41 driven in, scored 55 times. A solid year that got him some mentions for Rookie of the Year, but he didn't win anything there. He had a 1.2 WAR for the season. This year, he's currently hitting 371, 407, 589. That OPS of 997 has just been fantastic. WRC plus of 169, 1.9 WAR, 6 doubles, 6 triples, 5 home runs, and 20 RBI already. He's already scored 32 runs. He's played in 41 games and has just been spectacular. Defensively, he's had some great games and some pretty rough games. Shortstop, he's filling in occasionally for Menzies. They don't have a stellar defensive backup for Menzies right now, and he's struggling a bit at short. That is not his main position. Second is his main position. He's got a 986 efficiency at second, which is not outstanding, but it's passable, and it's enough to keep him in the conversation. At shortstop this year, 813 efficiency, negative 4.3 zone rating. Last year, he did play 31 games at short and ended up with a negative 2.3 and a 980 efficiency. So he's playing at a much worse clip than he was last year there defensively. He did have a game with 3 errors recently that hurt him pretty considerably there. Normally, he's not that bad, but he did have a really rough stretch there. The rest of the bench has actually been pretty good as well, with Mick Scott hitting 305, 397, 373 as the backup center fielder. Kyuchi Mori at 322, 348, 483 in 37 games as the backup corner outfielder and playing against left-handers in place of Fuad Demirel. And then on the infield, Raid Ben Tamir has cooled off, but he's got off to a really good start. He's a great clubhouse guy. They like him a lot. He still has 0.2 positive WAR, 15 RBI in 30 games, mostly off the bench with a few starts against left-handed pitching. The guy who struggled the most is Jeremy Tucker, but he's started to come on a little bit of late. He's the backup catcher. He is hitting only 226, 263, 264. Really limited action as they're trying to get Fareed Bin Mubarak in there as often as possible. Let's take a quick look at some of the pitching situation. There have been a number of changes in the bullpen already this semester with Brian Longstaff, Pete Benoit, Tony Giles, Patrick Rasmussen, all starting the year at the big league level and now are either with other clubs through waiver claims or sitting in AAA Richmond because of poor performance. They've signed guys like Jim Thompson and Joe Jackson and Lorenzo Aguilar. Some of those were waiver claims. Some of those were free agents. They have a couple of other guys like Ivan Ruiz, who has made his first start of the year this past time around the rotation, who they signed. They have other guys in AAA Richmond right now who are waiting for the call to see if maybe they can find their way up. Guys like Brady Miller, Juan Oliver, were signed during the season and have a chance to maybe take a spot if other players continue to falter. So some bullpen guys who've been fantastic. Felix Camargo has a 1.04 ERA and 8 saves so far in 23 outings. Neil Davies, 3.22 ERA in 18 outings. Andrew McLean started really well, has struggled lately, 4.71 ERA in 19 games. But again, that's a couple of recent outings that have put him in trouble, so we'll see how that goes. Jim Thompson has done well since being brought on, 16 games, 3.31 ERA. Lorenzo Aguilar in 12 games has a 3.86, so he's also been very good. Joe Jackson has only played in 3 games, but has a 2.25 ERA. A guy they were hoping for more from is Carl Vincent. He currently has a 6.51 ERA, 9 games, 7 starts. He's recently been moved to the bullpen. He's one of the more expensive middle relief guys or long relief guys in the league, making over $7 million. They also had Yamashita on the roster, who is currently in waivers and designated for assignment, so we'll see what happens with him as he has struggled early in the year as well. Johnny Rasmussen started the year fantastically. He's been a little rough his last couple of starts out, but he's 6-2, 4.26 on the year in 12 starts. Mauro Mendoza, who they signed in April, has played in 8 games, all starts, 5-0, 2.79. He's been a fantastic find for them. Bueno Minaki, 18 games. He has started 6 of them. He struggled mightily early, moved to the bullpen, and recently made another start, and it was brilliant. So we'll see if that can continue. They'd love to have him pitching gems like his most recent outing on a regular basis. Josh Clark, since adding his 4th pitch, that cutter that he picked up this spring, having a great year. 5-2, 2.77 ERA in 11 games. He doesn't go deep in games, but he's been very effective. Andres Gonzalez has been much better since coming back from the minors. In May, he pitched 4 games with a 2.22 ERA. After 4 games, 11.12 in April. So his brief stint in the minors seems to have yielded some good results. They're hoping for that to continue as well. If those starters can continue to pitch well the way that they have recently, then that could bode very well for Charlotte moving forward. John Rasmussen, as I said, has struggled lately. In April, he was 3-1 with a 2.12 ERA. May was much worse at 6.23 in 6 starts. So he did have a couple of good ones mixed in there in May. On May 11th, he went 8 innings, allowing 2 earned runs. On May 22nd, 6 innings, 3 earned runs. But in his other 4 starts, he's given up at least 4 earned runs in all of them. So they're hoping that he can kind of get that switch back around to pitching the way that he was in April. Okay, we're going to take a quick look at a few prospects. We're not going to spend time with too many of them, but we are going to look at a couple of them. Jaquat Nada is one of them that we're going to discuss. Nada is an interesting character in that he has been pitching and hitting in the minor leagues. His hitting is ahead of his pitching, but he has done a nice job this year with his pitching. In New Bern, he actually, so he started the year at Danville, pitched 3 games there, also played some offense. We'll talk about that in a second. Had a 72 FIP minus, so that actually was outstanding at A-ball. Went to Double-A and pitched 6 games there. Had a FIP minus of 90 with a 2.72 ERA. So actually saying his pitching is behind his hitting is going to sound a little funny here because his pitching numbers have been fantastic at those first 2 stops. Now, when he got to Richmond, however, his FIP minus so far in his first 2 outings is 124. He has an ERA of 6.75, a FIP of 4.82, so that's a little better. But looking at the 2 games that he pitched, the first one was pretty rough. 4 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 walks. The second one was better. It was actually a quality start, 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs. If you look at his the scouts' thoughts on him, they think that he kind of maxes out at about a 7 out of 10 on stuff, 7 out of 10 on movement, and 8 out of 10 on control. He does have 5 pitches, but the best of those is a fastball that maybe ends up an 8 out of 10 and a sinker that ends up 7 out of 10, but he hasn't reached his potential on any of his pitches. He has a slider and a changeup, maybe around a 6 as a max. His changeup is closest to reaching his potential out of those 2, and then a circle change that is pretty far off from the 5 that they think he might reach. Overall, current 6 stuff, 6 movement, 6 control, but better against right-handers than left-handers. So you figure the farther up he goes, getting into AAA is going to be a little tougher for him, and the majors may be too much for his pitching ability. But let's go ahead and look at his hitting. In Danville this year, well, last year he struggled. He jumped from rookie all the way up to Danville. Had a WRC plus of 92. 234, 323, 414 slash line. Nothing spectacular. This year he started out, played his first 13 games at Danville, and was hitting 364, 451, and 659 with a 197 WRC plus, 3 home runs in those 13 games. He was really on fire. Went to New Bern and played 30 games. He was okay. 243, 306, 396. Didn't really take off. He did hit 5 home runs in those 30 games, drove in 21 runs, but they ended up moving up to Richmond, and he is manning first base for the Panthers right now. And in his first 11 games there, 279, 326, 419, so not a bad start, a WRC plus of 107 so far there. He has 3 doubles, a home run, and 5 RBIs, scored 7 runs in those 11 games. So we'll see what happens with him from a rating standpoint there. 7 contact, 7 gap, 9 power, 7 eye, and some trouble avoiding Ks with a 4 as a max out. He hasn't reached his potential in most areas. Against lefties, he's a little farther along than he is against right-handers, but we will see kind of what happens with him. Just a very quick look at a couple of other guys. Lawrence Stewart, the catcher that we thought might have a chance to break camp with the team, is in Richmond right now at AAA. He is currently hitting only 264, 292, 365, so his offense has stalled a bit at the AAA level, so probably a good thing he's getting some experience there. He's hitting better against lefties than against right-handers. Last year, at New Bern, he did hit 379, 410, 490. So obviously, the drop-off is pretty severe so far this season. We'll see if he can turn that around a little bit. Shuyan Zhang is another guy at Richmond. He is having a very solid year there. 298, 372, 507. He's got 13 home runs, 33 RBI, 1.9 WAR in 55 games. He's a guy that we talked about who struggles a little bit defensively, but can hit extremely well and has done so, especially against right-handers so far this year. We also have Jorge Trujillo, who is hitting 300, 357, 381. His power hasn't quite reached what they have scouted out as a potential there, so we'll see if he can get there. A guy that we're keeping an eye on, but who has not had an opportunity yet to do much this year is Ron Christian. He really has spiked in his potential from what the scouts are seeing. They think he can really hit an 11.67 on stuff, movement, and control, which could be pretty fantastic if he can get there. Fastball with a 10 potential. He's already reached that potential. Curveball 10 with current of 8, and a forkball where he is 8 potential and 8 current. Decent stamina, nothing spectacular there, but in his first 5 games this year before getting injured, 1-1, 3.05 ERA, 22 strikeouts in 20 2/3 innings, was off to a really nice start, but has not pitched since April 28th due to that injury, and he just had a setback, so they're hoping that he can come back and find some of that form again and continue to move toward his potential. The only other prospect that we're going to talk about today is Kai-Chun Huang. He is at A-ball playing for Danville. He has a long way to go to reach his potential, but his statistics so far this year have been rather compelling. He's pitched in 5 games. There was an injury that set him back a little bit, but he is 3-0 with a 0.33 ERA, 27.2 innings pitched, only 17 strikeouts, but has only allowed 1 earned run on the season. He in those outings, he has gone 5 1/3 innings, 8 1/3, 6 1/3, 6 1/3, and then the 1 1/3 where he was injured. He just came off the injured list, so we'll see how he does from there. His FIP minus of 74, pretty solid at this point. So The other prospects of interest right now are guys that we're not going to touch on because they're all at the lower levels. But we are going to talk a little bit about some of the guys taken in this year's draft. Up first is Hector Ruiz, the number one pick this year for Charlotte. He was taken 10th overall. He has the potential to be a pretty good defensive center fielder. Maybe not Victor Frazier level, but could be very solid out there. Probably a little bit more complete hitter than Frazier, according to his scouting profile, with the potential to have decent contact, great gap power, solid home run power, a decent eye, and a relatively solid ability to avoid strikeouts. He's got good speed, but needs to get better at his base running and stealing in order to really make use of it. But he's a guy who could potentially be a pretty exciting prospect. He's going to start at short A this year, along with guys like McNeil Jr. and Andres Gonzalez and Ricardo Hernandez, along with a few others. While in high school, Ruiz had a couple of pretty good years. His freshman year, he hit 296, 379, 486 with a 108 WRC plus. His next year was a step up from that. He had 313, 381, 556, so a 938 OPS, WRC plus of 127. He hit 10 doubles, 4 triples, and 7 home runs, drove in 35 runs in just 39 games. His junior year, he struggled a little bit. There's a story about some things surrounding his family and some struggles that they went through during this season. But he did have a little bit of a downturn, hit only 231, 333, 455. He did have 7 doubles, 2 triples, and 7 home runs, drove in 25 runs, but a WRC plus of only 83. So they're hoping that he can get into Adirondack and take off a little bit. Second round pick is Isaac Buggins, a third baseman who could probably play third base, first base, corner outfield. Looks like he has some versatility there. He has some good potential on the 1 to 10 scale. Again, contact 7, gap 7, power 7, 6 eye, and 5 avoid strikeouts. Right now, he has some work to do to reach that potential, but at 18 years old, he does have a chance to kind of get there. There are some questions about his work ethic and how quickly he catches on to things, but hopefully the team can do some stuff there to help him out with that. He played for Australia in the International Finishing Consortium, and so this year at age 18, he hit 286, 352, 592, WRC plus of 129. He had 13 home runs, 35 RBIs in the 39 games that he played there. So some pretty good numbers for the kid, and he will also be at Adirondack. Third round pick was Juan Ramirez. He's a lefty pitcher out of Puerto Rico. He is a guy who looks like he's actually pretty well developed at this point. He's a 7.57 on the stuff movement control rating. Right now, his current is 7.47, so he needs to work on his movement a little bit to reach his potential. They're hoping he can get a little bump. He can throw as hard as 99 miles an hour sometimes. He's got an okay fastball. He's got curveball, slider, changeup that are probably a little below average to average, and then a splitter that he's working on developing a little bit more. That's a pretty decent pitch as well. He could stand to get some bumps there if he really wants to take off, but from a statistical standpoint, this year was definitely his best year at the college level. He ended up in 11 games going 3-3 with a 2.58 ERA and a FIP minus of 76. His college FIP minus overall, 94 in 33 games. In high school, he had an 82 FIP minus in 24 games. Fourth round pick was James Gluck, another pitcher. Gluck is a hard thrower, 98 miles an hour he tops out at, has a pretty fully developed fastball, changeup, and splitter that are all pretty solid pitches. He also is pretty well developed in his stuff, and they scouts see it as about a 9. Movement, not as good. He needs to try to find a way to get a little more spin on his pitches to try to keep the ball in the ballpark a little more, and he needs to work on his control. They see him as a little below average control potential, but he has not even reached that potential yet. And we'll look at one more draft pick, the 5th round pick, Arturo Sandoval. Shares a name with a great trumpet player, and they're hoping that he can work some magic on the field. Looks like pretty decent contact and decent power, probably mainly going to be successful against right-handers, but probably not see much time against left-handers, especially as he gets farther along. His defense probably not top level, but could probably be passable at first base. So those are the top 5 draft picks. We've taken a look at quite a bit in this episode, and we're going to go ahead and call it for today. So I want to thank you for joining me here on the second episode of Flight Tracker.